Hello, welcome back. We are coming to a close in ACT Science. This is the second to last day, conflicting viewpoints number 2. Tomorrow we'll do conflicting viewpoints number 3, and that'll be it in terms of science. These last 2 days are pretty light in terms of demands on you. I'm only going to actually work through one passage today. The other two I'm going to leave to you. I don't. There's only 3 passages in here. I'm going to do one of them for you. You're going to do the other 2. You're going to check it, and these should be going pretty quick for you. The small amount of work I'm giving you this week should make you a little, what's going on? I'm going to throw some more work at you next week. Math, I got to throw a lot of math at you. So get ready for math. Yeah, that'll be some more work. It will ramp back up here in a moment. So getting into conflicting viewpoints, practice and group work number 2, I'm going to do the first one for you. Again, last time you saw those last ones, pretty easy, except for that stupid one, the block on the ramp. But these, I'm going to start ramping up the difficulty. You'll notice these are some passage 4 is this first one. It's a passage 4. The next one's a passage 6, and the last one is a passage 5. So I've got kind of the middle of the test here, middle to end of the test. Doesn't really matter where the conflicting viewpoint is unless it's at the very beginning. It's usually going to be pretty hard unless it's at the very beginning. You had a pretty easy one that was at the beginning last week. So let's jump into it. And recall, I'm not going to read much of anything. If I read anything, it's the intro, just to know, kind of frame what the heck is going on. Okay, biological aging, great, is the process by which the functions within an animal cell gradually decline, causing the cell to age. Fantastic. 4 students each proposed an explanation for how this process occurs. You didn't need to read that. Doesn't really tell you much besides it's going to be about aging. Okay. So what are you doing though? It's your word searching. This whole dang thing is a word search. You don't have time generally to read for understanding. You don't. I mean, you just don't. So stop trying to read for understanding. That sounds weird. You're trying to make the quick surface level connections that the text seems to suggest. Number 20, which of the students, if any, claim that biological aging is caused by a substance produced by cellular respiration? What am I going to search for? Gosh, substance produced by cellular respiration? Cellular respiration, I don't know, that seems like what I'm searching for. Okie dokie, and I go back and look at that. And I see, ooh, biological aging is caused solely by reactive oxygen species produced by, cellular respiration. Okay, so number 1 is in it. So right away, I can cross out H and J. You don't need to check 2 or 3. Look at your answer options. You know student 1 is a yes, so it's either got to be student 1 only or student 1 and student 4. If you had never thought about how the answers are presented to you, well, they could save you a lot of time if you look at what's available to you. People who didn't look at the answer options would have read 2 and 3. They would have figured out, I don't have to do this. This doesn't help me. So you jump right to 4. You jump right down to 4, and it says biological aging is caused solely by a brown pigment produced by cellular respiration. Hot damn. It's in the first sentence on both of them. The word that I told you to search for, produced by cellular respiration, it's in those 2. You didn't need to look at 2 and 3 because once you figured out that 1 was a yes, there were no other options that, none of the options that include 1 include 2 or 3. So we know it's going to be G, 2, 1, and 4. Boom. And we did that by word search. And do I know what reactive oxygen species or lipofuscin is? Fuskin? No, I don't even know how to pronounce it, but you still got the point right. Keep moving. Number 21. Suppose it were determined that the rate of biological aging in an animal cell is directly proportional to the number of bonds formed between the proteins in that cell. Okay. Rate of biological aging directly proportional to the number of chemical bonds. Seems like chemical bonds is the thing to look for there. Everything's talking about aging. What's the specific thing? Number of chemical bonds. Let's maybe search through for chemical bonds formed between proteins. All right. Let's see. Does student 1 talk about bonds? No, it doesn't look like student 1 talks about bonds. Student 2, biological aging is caused solely by crosslinks between the proteins. Crosslinks, a type of chemical bond. Oh, between oh my gosh, bonds between the proteins. Do I know what's going on? Not really, but I found the word chemical bond. And by finding the word chemical bond, you just got a question right in the ACT. Congratulations. Number 22. Based on student 2's explanation. Great. Okay, so we're going back to where we've already read. And it tells us where to look. That's nice. Doesn't always tell us where to look. Means I probably have to think a little bit though. Based on student 2's explanation, the substances present in cells that are most directly involved with biological aging are composed of what type of subunits? All right, the substances most directly okay, so what is student 2 saying is most directly involved? Well, he says it's clumps of proteins to form clumps. Okay. All right, proteins form, so what are proteins made up of? You gotta ask, what are they made of? Made of ... Well, what are proteins made of? Do you remember from Bio 1? This is, you gotta have some prior knowledge here. Hopefully you recall that proteins are made up of amino acids. So, good times. That's a prior knowledge question. You needed to know that. It doesn't give it to you anywhere in the text. 3 down, 4 to go, and then you get to try some on your own. Carnosine, sounds like meat, carne, is a substance that prevents protein cross-linking in animal cells. Okay, what students would be most likely to predict that the average concentration of carnosine would be greater than the average concentration of carnosine cells in elderly adults? So carnosine prevents protein cross-linking. Okay. Who cares about protein cross-linking? Search for protein cross-linking. Who talks about protein cross-linking? Oh, my God. Crosslinks. Does that show up anywhere else? Oh, it also shows up in student 4. Ooh. Oh, and it also shows up in student 3. Ooh, okay. All right, so it's not so easy. All right, so 3 students talk about cross-linking. It doesn't look like 1 does, so I can probably cross out 1 right away. I know that's not involved with the cross-link thing. So I got to decide between 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and this guy says carnosine would be greater in the average concentration of the cells of elderly adults. So if carnosine prevents protein cross-linking, okay. All right, so all right, who says carnosine is going to be greater in young adults than in elder people? Okay. Here it says cross-linked proteins do form clumps. These cells never affect cell function. Oh, okay. Because protein cross-links are short-lived, protein clumps never accumulate in a cell. Oh, okay. So these two never affect cell function, never exceeds the cell's ability to repair that damage. But down here, interfering with the cell's function, causing it to age. It seems like it's student 2 saying that these clumps are bad and that they have an effect. So, would you have spent as long as I did thinking out loud about it? No, but hopefully you would have found that 3 of those people talk about crosslinks and very quickly also seen that 2 of them says it doesn't do anything. Never affect, never exceeds. So the quick way to answer that's by negating, via negativa, crossing out the things that aren't right, leaves you with what is right. Ugh. Sometimes you got to resort to that on the, especially on the reading one, because it's often takes a long time to verify that something's true. It's often much easier to cross out the things that are more obviously false or contradictory. High level skill. Number 24. Which of the students claim that biological aging occurs because a substance accumulates into clumps that interfere with cellular function? Okay. Clumps. Clumps. You get a search for the word clumps, quite literally. Where do we find clumps? Any clumps in one? All right. One doesn't talk about clumps. One doesn't talk about clumps anywhere. Which ones can you cross out? One doesn't talk about clumps. You can cross about F. I'm just making sure one doesn't talk about clumps. It does not. If one doesn't talk about clumps, which ones can you cross out? F, H, and J. You're done. You're absolutely done. You can circle G. We have found the answer. Did we have to do any work? Not a lick. Well, very little. We looked for the word clumps in one, saw it wasn't there, crossed out the 3 that had 1 in it. Okay. All right, so you got 5 down. A lot of questions dealing with clumps. Notice 23 and 24. You could have answered those not by knowing what the correct answer was, but by knowing which answers were incorrect, by being able to eliminate options that, you know, obviously couldn't be correct. AP or ACT is going to do that sometimes for you. 25. What fun. Student one's explanation. All right, they're telling us where to look. That's generous of them. Would be most strongly supported. If which of the following observations were made? There's no quick way to answer this one, except by noticing maybe that A and B are talking about crosslinks. Increasing the number of crosslinks will increase the rate at which they age. Decreasing the number of crosslinks will increase the rate at which they age. Okay, so those are talking about crosslinks. And these are talking about antioxidant concentrations, increase, or decrease, increase. Looking at one like that, you just gotta check and verify here. You gotta cut out half the first time, cut out half the second time. And if you start with 4, you got the right answer left after that. So student one, what the heck student one talking about? Is he talking about first decision I'd say, is he talking about crosslinks or antioxidant concentration? And right away, looking at that thing, reactive oxidant species, antioxidants, great. Okay, so it's talking about antioxidants. So right away, you can cross out the crosslinks. That is A and B. They're gone. You got it down to a coin flip. If you were hurting for time, it's better to guess out of 2 than guess out of 4. So increasing antioxidant concentration, is that going to increase the rate of aging, or decreasing antioxidant concentration is going to increase the rate of aging? Let's take a look. The cell produces antioxidants which eliminate ROS. Okay. Oh, cell produces antioxidants which eliminate ROS. So as antioxidants goes up, ROS goes down. That's the thing that caused the aging. So are they the same or different directions? This says increasing antioxidants will increase the rate at which they age. That seems to be backwards. I'm looking for an opposite or an inverse relationship. If I take down the antioxidants, they will age faster. It's going to be option D there. Hard ones. That one is tricky because the way the text presents it to you is opposite of the way the answer choice presents it to you. It's kind of a down-up arrow in the answer question, where it's an up-down arrow in the text. Welcome to the hard questions on the ACT. Last one, compound X is a chemical that causes genetic mutations in animal cells. Okay, suppose it were determined that human neurons grown in the presence of compound X age at the same rate as human neurons grown in the absence of compound X. Okay, so this is something that causes genetic mutations. All right, and this says it would weaken the explanation given by what student. So this says, the text kind of says that compound X, which really is about genetic mutations, they don't affect aging. That's the train of logic you got to follow there. Okay, they're saying compound X is a thing. Compound X causes genetic mutations. Great. And then we say that these genetic mutations don't affect aging. Well, who the heck does talk about genetic mutations affecting aging? I would go back and search for that phrase, genetic mutations. Where are you going to find it? Well, what do we see? One talks about cell damage. 2 talks about clumps. All right. 3 talks about DNA damage. DNA damage. DNA damage sounds a lot like mutations. DNA damage, repair the okay, DNA damage accumulates. All right. What am I thinking here? I'm thinking DNA damage has something to do with genetic mutations. It doesn't use the word genetic mutations anywhere. Well, you got to know that genetic mutations, what are genes? Genetic mutations, genes. You got to know genetic mutations are really talking about DNA. Who talks about DNA damage? Student 4 seems to talk about the extent of DNA. Okay, so this says that DNA damage is easily repaired. So it's not student 4. It's going to be student 3 only. That's a tricky one. What do you have to know? You have to be able to follow that chain of logic. You have to know that genes and DNA, those are kind of the same thing. Mutations to genes can result from damage done to DNA. You got to know that. You got 2 more passages here for you to do from me. The next one, very exciting, deals with how do candles work. Do you know how candles work? I find that most people don't. The next one is talking about heating up some air, heating up a copper tube. Loads of fun. How long should you take to do one of these passages? Really? Remember, these are the ones you're going to do last. I don't expect this is going to take you a whole lot of time to actually do it the first time. Going back and checking your work is probably going to take more time. So that's group work number 2, conflicting viewpoints. You got 1 more next time. See you then.